Warnings of drought in England as soon as next month. The Environment Agency has released a statement following urgent drought talks that have been happening today. It says people across the country have been urged to use water wisely to protect water supplies and the environment during the current period of prolonged dry weather. Nowhere in England is currently considered to be in drought, and most water companies are maintaining good reservoir storage for summer demand. They go on to say if further measures are required, temporary use bans, more commonly known as, of course, the hosepipe ban, that will be determined by individual water companies, and drought permits and drought orders by the Environment Agency and DEFRA, respectively. It goes on to say, however, recent abnormally high temperatures have exacerbated conditions resulting from lower than normal rainfall so far this year in many parts of England. Can't remember the last time we had proper rain, can you? The statement goes on to say that Met Office forecasting is showing potentially several more dry weeks ahead, taking us well into August, particularly in the south and the east of the country. The EA and the Environment Agency and water companies are now enacting the early stages of their well-rehearsed and publicly available drought plans, and they are calling on anyone to do their bit in managing water use. That is what we have from the Environment Agency, a rather lengthy statement there. We've just picked out the highlights of it for you after those emergency talks today. The UK at the early stages of drought, but as they said, not officially in drought just yet. We'll keep an eye on that situation here on Sky News, of course. Well, Sky's Sadia Chowdhury has been at Brent Reservoir in northwest London for us today.
Here at this reservoir, it does look like we've got plenty of water, but locals here say that it's usually much fuller. It's also about the weather that is being forecast, more dry spells coming up. And so that is what's causing this concern of a drought coming up, and that's why there are these crisis talks happening right now. And the last time we had a drought was just in 2018, so not that long ago, but the one probably a lot of people remember is the one of the 1970s, which was the hydrological drought. That's similar to the one that they're discussing today, and that happens when there are consecutive seasons of unusual weather, which is what we've been having, of course. If you remember the last few weeks, the hot weather, we've seen fires breaking out in places that usually weren't prone to fire. Yesterday I was speaking to some fire crews at the Hankley Common fire who said that the drizzle that we're seeing, we had some drizzle overnight and this morning and also yesterday, they said that's just not enough. We need a lot more rain to restore the conditions back to what it's meant to be and to be able to stave off a drought. And these crisis talks taking place right now between government ministers, the Environment Agency, water companies and the National Farmers Union is all aimed at trying to find ways to protect our water resources, and talks are happening about what we can do as well. We know that Southern Water, for example, has already applied for a drought licence over a river in Southampton, and that is one of the things that could come out of that is a hosepipe ban. Now, earlier in the summer when we had that heat wave, we had those Cobra meetings, and during that hosepipe bans were discussed. Whether or not we should have a hosepipe ban at the time, government ministers told us that it wasn't being considered because water supply was fine. But we know what happens when there is intense heat. There's a lot of pressure on water systems. We saw those burst water mains on the Isle of Sheppey, which meant that some people were without water for 3 days. And, you know, Sky News was there covering that. We saw the impact that has on local communities. So a lot of advice has already been given to people about reducing water usage. Hard to do on very hot days, but just to be mindful of things like filling up inflatable pools in your back garden, for example. So hosepipe bans, just one of the many things that might come out of today's meeting.